Welcome to One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. I'm your host, Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell. I am the Breakthrough Success Coach and your Powerful Presence Mentor. With me today is someone very special, someone who I have cussed at regularly, someone who's brought tears to my wife's eyes, and someone I've been looking forward to meeting. The reason he brings out cuss words is because he pushes me, and the reason he brings tears is because he both pushes and comforts. And this is Chase Tucker. Most people know him from Peloton, but Chase, you're welcome. Your background is much broader than Peloton, where you've been for the past 4 years. And we'll dive into that a little bit. Chase,
yes, absolutely.
Welcome. Yeah. Thank
you for having me. It really is a pleasure being here and just be on my very first podcast of 2022. So
that's awesome. That's awesome. Yes. Awesome. Let's, some people know this about you. Some people don't. You're the oldest of three. You grew up in Chicago. Right. Here's what I do know, and then I'll ask you to fill in the blanks. You started down a path of maybe thinking that you wanted to do pre-med because your parents were in medicine. They didn't have an easy start, and we can talk about that a little bit if that's.
I would love to.
Yeah,
I'd love to.
And then I want to know what got you out of pre-med into kinesiology. For me, what got me out of pre-med was OChem. Organic chemistry was like, that's a nope. So so let's talk about where'd you grow up? And how did that impact you? And how did you know, like you've always been a helper, how did you know you wanted to go this route?
Yes. Okay. So I can go about it a couple ways. Would you like me to go from, the switch from pre-med to kinesiology, or do you want to know like a little bit further back?
Let's go back a little ways. And it's okay. Always funny. Yes. My doctorate's in clinical psych. And so when I go, let's go back, it's not let's begin with your mother and your father. It's not that, but it is like, what were some of your early influences in childhood? You talk about being, you've always played sports. You've always been slightly competitive.
Right.
Like, let's go back. What caused that?
I think that, so yes, I'll start at the very beginning, the very best place to start. So I grew up in Chicago as the son of two underdogs, right? On my mom's side, you have a woman who, when she was a little girl, she moved over here from Haiti with her, her brothers and my uncles and my grandmother, her mother actually moved over from Haiti to America first to prepare and lay the foundation for what eventually would become, the start, for the rest of, her family to come over here. So when she was like a little girl, I think she was like 4 or 7, I forget exactly, but she came over here. And so already right off the bat, she was born into a reality that I'm not going to say that she was necessarily like, she grew up impoverished or anything like that, but she was born into a setting that, you're already an unlikely candidate to get a shot to get out of there. Right. Or to experience anything other than your immediate surrounding. Right. And so my mother, that's where she came from. And then and on my dad's end, he was born in Chicago, and he was born to a single mother who almost didn't have him. And just because of circumstances and the setting, he grew up in the west side of Chicago, which wasn't a third world country, but it in many ways, there were a lot of similarities, including the level of poverty around this, the mentality, the level of violence, and just, that he saw on like a regular basis. And so, which he made his way out of as well. So right off the bat, before you even get to me being born, I am the product of two underdogs who are my heroes and who always have been, and who are just, in my mind, they're badass. And they just right off the jump, I'm set up with like a lot of, even though I didn't grow up in their situations myself, I grew up like, I'm so grateful. I was literally actually on, just finished being on a couple of calls before this podcast episode. I was on a couple of calls with not one, but two first generation Black men who are now founders of, companies in tech. And, we were talking about the fact that like how grateful I am, or how grateful we were for the fact that, we have both, right? We're just one point of contact away from that struggle or that adversity. We didn't experience it ourselves, but we are the first shot of making those struggles, worthwhile.
That's amazing.
Kind of making them not having been in vain, right? So
yes,
I'll get back to my story, but and so this is why like I start with before me, because I'm there. I say this, if it seems like I'm really kind of harping on this and going on a lot of this, I wanted to really emphasize, the fact that, this is how I was set up to even just be at the level that I was. But I don't want everybody listening to acknowledge, like, no matter where you are, how low, whatever you were or high you are, like you were set up before you even came to existence. You were set up a certain way by the struggles of the people behind you, whether it was one generation behind you, more your ancestors, whatever. So, okay.
That's huge. That's huge, by the way. And I want to, along the way, what I like to do is to point out sort of leadership lessons as part of the journey. And that is, it is huge that the stories, the intergenerational stories that happen, your grandparents, your parents, even maybe your great grandparents, what they've passed down as legacy. You either get to say, wow, that was hard, and I guess my life is hard, or wow, that was hard, and I have the opportunity to bounce from that. And like, so you were set up like with underdogs who were fighters. Like they were like, that's part of your legacy is, hey, we came here for a reason. And you're like, well, I'm not throwing away. I'm not throwing that away. That's awesome. That's awesome. Good for you.
It is. Thank you. Thank you so much. I agree. I think that I not only agree that my parents are fighters, they are warriors of, each in their own right. And so the fact that they combined and joined forces to, I'm grateful. I'm just like, man, it's like the best, in my mind, it's like the best story ever of, how two people can meet. Because my mother, she came from Haiti. I'll tell the rest of their stories. Like, she came from Haiti, and then she went on to become, in a time where there weren't many people who looked like her or came from where she came from. She came, and she didn't speak a lick of English coming over here. So she would often get teased, made fun of. And so she used that even growing up. She would tell me about how she would get teased, made fun of, and she would just like use it as fuel. Like, okay, like doubt me. And she like fueled her way all the way to medical school, becoming a doctor, like the upper echelon of academia, like where no one expected a little girl from Haiti to come from, right? Or to make it from. And then on my dad's side, having been like, growing up to a single mom, who almost aborted him just because of the situation she was in. And, no judgment or anything on her. Like, everybody has their situation and their journey and the things that they feel they have to do. But he almost wasn't even born. Then when he was born in like, South Side Chicago, rough West Side, which is, poverty, there's projects, there's gang violence, drugs, so many things, that every reason not to be the person that he was. And yet he willed himself out of that, focused on his studies, became, disciplined, and sought out discipline in the form of martial arts, which kept him focused. And he went on to become a doctor as well. So I think that, and then my parents meeting, my mom being in a residency, my dad being a doctor in the hospital where they met, it's like no wonder, like, I feel like the hopeless romantic in me is just like, like, that's just like you can't paint a better, in my mind, you can't have a better story, like two underdog warriors just like meeting and along their parallel paths and then like joining forces like that. And so
I love that you love that, right? I love that you love that.
I do. Yes. Right. Yeah, I do. I always have too. And it almost like, I really, like I said, I have this like a part of me that's like always going to be that hopeless romantic, but I always appreciated the story from like an early age. Cause I was like, this is even as a young age, I was like, this isn't normal. Like, that's not supposed, like, that doesn't, how, what are the odds that would happen? And so right. I think that gave me such an appreciation for people who have every reason not to be who they became, but they found a way anyway. Mm-hmm. Those are my favorite kind of people, because that's the people that I came from, and that's who I see myself as. So, all right, now they have me a year after getting married. So I was born in Chicago to a son of two doctors. And so I pause right there. And I think that part of what I like, why I love to preface with that story, is because when I say I'm a son of two doctors, I feel like a lot of people be like, oh, he was like had this cushy kind of upbringing, or like he had a silver spoon. And I'm like, you don't know what, the parents that I came from, like, cause that could never be the case. But, so I son of two doctors, and I was the oldest of three. So I have two younger brothers, my baby brother, my baby sister, who they're not actually babies, but I just call them baby brother and baby brother sister, because they're, in my mind, they're always going to be like these little. I remember being a kid and like asking like, God, please, can I have like a little baby brother and sister? And he gave them to me. And so I'll always look at them as like being like the babies in my arms, no matter how big they get. And my little brother's bigger than me. He's like twice my height. But
that's awesome. You're adorable, Chase. So this is so good.
I'll take it. So I grew up in Chicago, and so Chicago was I love Chicago. Everybody who takes my classes, they know I rep it to the fullest. And Chicago really was, I love it because it's where I grew up. It's what I knew the world to be, and I lived there until I was, I think 11 years old. So 11, I moved to Florida with my family. My mother, my grandmother on my mother's side was, my grandparents on my mother's side, they lived in Florida. And so my grandmother on my mother's side is a nurse. And so she was taking care of my grandfather, and who had back-to-back strokes. He was having dementia, health issues, and she was basically taking care of him, and it was weighing on her. So my mother made the decision, she made the decision. Like, she's like, I want to, I want to be the one who can take care of my mother, take care of my parents. So she moved us. She and my father made the decision to, move our family there. And so we moved to Florida. And so I lived there for a few years. And
at 11, it's actually, that's kind of an upheaval. You're just a preteen. You've been in Chicago. You're a preteen, and now your life is turned upside down by a move.
So, and so I grew, because I grew up, and I had moved before, because I had lived in Hyde Park. Then we moved to Oak Park, but it was still Chicago, right? It was still Chicago, and so it was the first time moving outside of Chicago, but I didn't see it necessarily as like, oh man, I'm gonna miss Chicago. I knew that I would always love Chicago, but I had as a kid, I was used to being in Florida because we would go and travel and like visit my grandparents, go to Disney World, visit them, in Florida, get like mango fruit from there, like a mango tree in the backyard. And, you know, I would go in the swimming pool. So I was no stranger to Florida. And I was like actually excited. I was like, you mean we get to go and like live? I was probably like more excited than I was scared. Because I was like, you mean to tell me we get to go where it's always like sunny and, you know, we can go swimming and we can go to the beach. But cause I'd only known it from that viewpoint, from that lens. So yeah, we left cold, wintry Chicago, moved to Florida, lived there for 3 years. My grandmother, she shortly after we moved there, she unfortunately passed away from leukemia. And so we stayed in Florida. We were still taking care of my grandfather. And my mother decided, who's a pediatrician, by the way, she's a doctor for children. She decided she wanted to open her own clinic. She no longer did she want to kind of, you know, work for another hospital. She wanted to have her own clinic, because one thing that she has always had a passion for from day one in her practice or in her career was being someone who could lend her services in lower income communities, so that she could really be where she was most needed, rather than being just yet another person who's like in a more affluent or, you know, and even when she first got out of med school, she was actually, the program that she was a part of was willing to like pay for partially or fully for her education if she made up basically like a pledge to like work X many years in this kind of low income neighborhood. And she was like, you mean to tell me like I get to get paid to do what I want to do anyway? Sure, hell yeah. So fantastic. She loved that. So, but fast forward, us being in Florida, my mom, you know, really wanted to start her own clinic. So we scouted out. I remember us going on different flights, different trips out of the country, like North Carolina, Mississippi, like different states, like to scout out places where she could potentially find a spot where there was a need for her, where we could call home. And we ended up moving to Tennessee and choosing Jackson, Tennessee, where we ended up living, so that she could start her clinic in Humboldt, Tennessee, which isn't far from Jackson. So basically, 11 was in Chicago, 3 years spent in Florida. So it was a bit of fragmented upbringing. So I spent my last 2 years of high school in Tennessee. So I spent my junior and senior year high school in Tennessee. And throughout this whole time, like I've been playing sports my whole life. Since age 4 in Chicago, I was in AYSO, American Youth Soccer Organization, playing soccer, like rec league soccer, playing other sports too. But soccer has always been like my favorite sport, and the one that I've played since I was like at it from the earliest age. So, after high school, I graduate. Still don't really know what I want to do. And mind you, like throughout my academic career, I've never been the kid who's like the smartest or the A student. I was always like the kid who just like, teachers would tell me like he's got so much potential, but he just doesn't apply myself. And looking back, I was like, duh, like I just never felt challenged. And my mom could see it. I really am grateful for my mother, because she, for so many reasons, but for one reason is that she, you know, she's so wise, because she was able to see in me where other people saw this problem child who was just maybe mischievous or just not applying himself, or maybe just, you know, not really focused. She saw a child who just wasn't stimulated. Like I just wasn't, I was bored, and like I didn't have anything that was interesting to me or stimulating to me. And so she really, I'm grateful that she put me in sports. She really took the initiative to put me in sports, keep me involved in activities that like really like, you know, kept me active, kept me challenged, exposed to different things. And she saw how curious I was. Right. Mm-hmm. She saw how curious I was and how much how I loved learning. And so I'm really grateful that she put me in situations where I could soak up new information and just be that curious child, which I still am to this day. I'm just like a big curious kid. And that's where, you know, I think that those are the two things that still just define me to this day. Like I'm still curious, always have been since I was a kid. I'm still mischievous, you know, I'm still getting into mischief as an adult. Now it's just positive mischief.
One of the reasons that it was my wife that suggested that we connect. And
right.
One of the reasons she suggested that is because she said that you and I are very similar in the way we think. Right. And I'm like, maybe, and what's great is I am a huge fan of promoting curiosity. I believe, and I just did a TED Talk on this, I believe that curiosity is actually the keystone for bringing us together as in humanity. The curiosity keeps us out of judgment. Curiosity keeps us out of blame, and curiosity keeps us creative. And so if we are always looking for what's this other angle, what's next, what else is there, it allows for a creative outlet. It also allows for a different perspective. And so while there was a mischievous part of you, which is the playful side, which I think is absolutely essential not to lose also, right? That you keep that. There's also this really grounded curiosity in what else is there? Like, in terms of challenge, in terms of personal fulfillment. So I love that.
Good. I'm glad. Thank you so much for highlighting that. I think I'm glad that you promote curiosity, because I think that curiosity is one of the things I'm learning now to promote more. But up until I became more of an adult who was out here. I think after college, when I kind of was in the world a little bit more and I could see more of it, I started realizing how much. That's when you really start realizing, okay, what you've had in your life up until this point versus what the world is actually like. And I started realizing people were experiencing these situations that were clearly making me aware of the fact that just wow, people just not everybody thinks this way. And I didn't realize. And so I'm just now starting to promote it more, because up until me really adulting more, I didn't realize how much it was a superpower of mine that from an early age, I've been building that muscle, and how so many people, it's a weakness of theirs, because curiosity is either they don't even realize that it's something worth investing in, or they just haven't developed it enough to the point where because in my opinion, you can only really achieve heights that are in the level of the success you want to achieve in life is in direct proportion to the level of curiosity that you have. And I truly believe that. I think that, anyone, whether you're in business, whether you're in sports, anything, your ability to ask curious, I wonder if what if I could do that? I wonder if, what would it take for me to do that one day? And it's a playful thing. I wonder if, and it, and I think that curiosity, that play, that mischievousness is just, it's helped me kind of really deflect a lot of the things that would otherwise have caused me to sit in the setbacks and failure. And it allows me to just be so, rather than just take it personally, I'm just so much more curious of okay, what if I overcame this? What if I kept,
that's the question.
What if this is exactly what I needed? Okay, I discovered a way not to do it. I wonder what the way is. To do it.
That is the question. Yeah. That is so good, Chase. Right. I love that so much.
I'm realizing now I haven't even finished my background story, but because I've just been so jumping off at different points. But I'm happy to finish that too if you want.
Yeah. So here's what I'd love to do. I want to highlight what you just said, because I think part of what I love to do is, and I think it's important for the audience, the listening and viewing audience, is to really lock in the lessons along the way. Also the journey, because I do want to get to the point where you're med school, no, physiology, yes.
Right. Yes, absolutely.
But I want to highlight this first. What you just said, the level of achievement is in proportion to the level of curiosity. And you're not You're not saying, well, how do I do it? You're saying, I wonder what it would be like to do it.
Right.
People stop themselves with the how.
Right.
I don't have all the how in place, therefore I guess I can't. And that stops curiosity. It's, I wonder what it would be like to break through this. It's sort of like when you ask us to move from lightweight to middleweight to heavyweight in our training. It's not, well, how do I pick this thing up? It's like, I wonder what it would be like to do 1 rep, now 2, now 4, now 8, right? So it's like, I wonder, it's not a how, it's you just do it. And I wonder what it would feel like to break through. And that's the mindset that I think is so powerful in life. It's part of, I believe, what drives you is I wonder what it would be like to just do this thing.
Absolutely.
It's not, oh, I got to figure this out. I got to step back and do all the how stuff. It's like, let me take a step towards it and feel what that's like. Awesome. Now that I know what that's like, I wonder what it would feel like to do the next thing.
Right.
So,
man, you're absolutely right. And I think that it's really, I'll put it this way, when you're a curious person and you are more, because really what it comes down to is imagination. Like how much are you in tune with your imagination and your ability to just like make believe? Like that's something that I'm so grateful that I not only was curious and I was put in situations that fostered curiosity, thanks to my mother and thanks to, my upbringing, but then also I was also really, I was in books so much. I was reading so much. I think reading books, and I have a big shelf, I'm looking at it right now, that in my place, and it's like my most prized possession in my place, because books really allowed me to escape and bring the world to me. I basically, before I ever traveled the world, I brought it to me through whether I was learning science, whether it was history, whether it was fiction. I really love fiction books, but like everything, I just, before there was the internet, like I had books and they were my escape into foster imagination. And I was forced to imagine things, and I was forced to, and so I think that imagination, when you're tapped into your curiosity and your imagination, everything is, I won't say that it makes life, I wouldn't say that it makes life easy. Maybe it does, but the things that I hear people complaining about sometimes, like that they see as obstacles, it would be, I'm trying to think about like an analogy that would make it, okay. So another thing about me is like, I'm an avid, like, I don't really play as much now, just because I'm so like, life is now my video game, but I've been like a gamer since I was a kid. I love playing video games. And so again, play, right? Whether it's sports, whether it's just playing games, whether it's, hide and seek, whether it's video games, I love play. And so I think movement is play. We can get into that more later, but movement, I think, is really born of a desire to play. We have a natural intrinsic desire to play. And so I look at it as like what some people see as like an obstacle, like something that's in their way. I think video games and books and just like trained me to think of these things as like, this is the fun part. Like how unfun, how boring would the game be if you were just like literally traversing, like if in Mario, it was just like completely flat landscape, nothing to jump over, nothing to bounce your head on and like make mushrooms come out, nothing, no minions to kind of like, get damaged by and then like try again. And like it would be so boring. Right. And so I think I look at life as like a video game. And so when people are complaining like, oh, like this is how, I'm like, what? I can't wait to get to that. Like, can we trade play? Can I like play that game for? I'm almost like hop in them and like play that video game for them, because I'm like, this is fun. Like I'm curious for you. Like, what would it take? Like, what would I have to do? I'm already like strategizing in my mind, like ways that I could approach this. Like, would I say this? Would I try that? Would I, all these different things. And it's, and then of course it's always also because I'm not personally like being affected by it. It's always easier to like think that way when you're not, when you have a level of detachment. But
so that detachment,
I use that in my own philosophy as well for my own life.
I think that's brilliant, right? Because one of the things, I know that you're a coach. You've done coaching, you're in coaching. And one of the things that as coaches, what we bring that other people don't have is perspective. Right?
Absolutely.
You can't ask a fish what water is like because the fish has no reference of other than water, right?
Absolutely.
And so you're in a space where you go, I could see it, and I just want to jump in and make them do this. It's like that's what's really fabulous, right? Is the look.
It's my favorite thing. It's the best.
It is.
It's so awesome. I love tinkering, and like I've been saying to myself, like I love messing with people's thoughts. I love I love like I can almost like see, like if you can think of like the interface of like, like these digital interfaces where like in the Minority Report where they're like waving their hands, like they can grab like an invisible, like a piece of like digital thing with their hand. It's like I can almost, when talking to somebody, it's like I can see the pathways in their mind that get them to arrive to the conclusion that they've gotten to. And I can see the piece that's in their way. And I almost like pulling that out, like examining that up, like examining it, holding up to the light and being like, look at this. Do you like this? How cool would it be if we swapped this and maybe took it in place for this one that would now become a bridge instead of a blockage, and then like allow you to have effortless, momentum forward on your journey now. But yeah, it's I love that having that detachment, being able to like see someone else's perspective or offer perspective that somebody else literally can't see, because we're willing to question every belief except the ones that are our most deeply held ones. Like, think about that. Like, that's crazy, right? I'm thinking about how like I'm willing to question everything except gravity. Like, but what if, right? Like,
exactly.
What if I'm not on Earth and gravity is different?
Exactly.
So first principles is so valuable for that reason, because you really literally can assume nothing and just start from square one. Continue though.
It's so fabulous that you're even referencing first principles, because that brings us back to, can we question everything? And the answer is, of course. Of course we can. And we probably, dare I say, it's the S word that I very seldom use. We probably should. Right? It's like,
right.
Can we, should we? And one of the things, it's interesting, the tied to curiosity is what the reason that we don't question things is that the things we value, they're insidiously connected to us, to our identities.
Right.
And so if we question the things that are tied to our identities, then who are we? And to me, that's a beautiful conundrum. That's like, well, another puzzle, who are we? And to many people, it's like, well, don't, you could touch everything else, but don't touch who I am. It's like, well, who you are, in order to
it gets
grow,
too close to home. Right.
Yeah. In order to grow, you've got to touch who you are, because like your foundational story of my grandparents had it hard, my parents had it hard, my parents made it easier, but man, did they struggle, and I'm not throwing away the shot that they gave me. That's a foundational story that you build on. Well, other people have foundational stories that actually bury them, right? And they let themselves get like, well, you don't understand, like, my parents had it hard, and they made it, but I can't really surpass them because of the hard work they did. I honor their work, and instead of honoring their work by going, and I'm going to contribute greatly in the world because of them, it's like, no, they had it hard, I'm going to carry their struggle forward.
Right.
You've made a very deliberate bounce you've made a very deliberate bounce. You're like, I was given this thing. My parents struggled. I was given this shot. I'm not throwing away this shot. Look at who I am. And then all the circumstances that led you to, I like movement. I'm curious. I'm going to use what did you say? Books to bring the world closer to you. It's like,
yes.
Oh my gosh, everything about that it's like, these are the layers of success. And by the way, anybody can start that at any point. Right? You can start curiosity now. You can start examining your identity and what you brought with you that no longer serves you now. You can start by bringing books into your life to bring the world closer. Now, even though we have internet, there's something magical about books. I have this big, you were pointing to yours, right? So I have this big case of books.
It's so fat. It's so, I will say that I agree. First of all, yes, everything you just said, but I think that one of the most powerful, and the person who I listened to and pay attention to who articulated this that I heard for the first time say it was Tom Bilyeu, who said, I believe that one of the most powerful identities that we can adopt as human beings is the identity of a learner, right? Because if I'm, I can base my identity on a lot of things. I can base my ego and my sense of pride and accomplishment on a lot of things, right? And they'll all get me so far, but it's only the identity of a learner that allows me to be truly anti-fragile. Because if I put my identity in being a businessman, for example, well, what happens when inevitably I hit the thing that kills my business, and now I'm questioning, like, who am I? And I'm like, so I was so wrapped up in it. It was so much a part of me that now it's crippled me. It was my Achilles heel, something that was literally a natural part of that journey. And that was a prerequisite for success is now a part of my demise. But it's the identity of a learner that the more obstacles I face, the better I become, the smarter I become. And I actually start getting hungry for them. So not only am I able to withstand them better, not only do they move me forward, but I actually look forward to them. Like that's such a powerful, that's truly such a powerful identity. And when he said that, it was kind of like a shift for me, because it's something that of course I believe. I didn't have to like disagree with or anything like that, or shift my belief from anything to that. But I was like, that is so true. I've never heard it articulated that way. And that is and so from then on, I intentionally adopted, I realized how much from like an early age I had that, that wealth of experience of investing in that learning mentality of being a student. And then I leaned in even more. And last thing I'll say on that note is that it's so interesting to me that like when people are on their journey, and it's because of that reason actually that this is a reality. When you don't have your identity as a learner, when things inevitably come up for you on your journey that require you to learn something, well, now it's almost like a hands thrown up move. Oh, wow, I should have been. Oh my gosh, I'm at such a disadvantage. Like, oh my goodness. When it's like, we know that the things that we invest in and that we haven't been a part of our default are the things that we appreciate the most. Like, it's my investment in something that allows me to appreciate it the most. So why would I see this as anything other than an opportunity to invest in myself and invest into a skill and truly appreciate it, because it is the key that will allow me access into my next level. So good. It's very a lot of idiosyncrasies of how the human mind works sometimes. But I'm as you can tell, like I'm a big student of human nature and psychology. So when I first took my first psychology class at Lipscomb University, where I went, that of course I had like read up and had done readings and stuff, and realized that like I was a fan. I loved learning about how people think and like what motivated them. But it wasn't until that class, like my first like psychology 101 or whatever it's called, that I was like, this stuff is dope. this is like, do I want to be a psychologist?
That's
Is this what I'm supposed to be? I legit was like, do I want to be a psychologist? No, like plot twist. No, I didn't. But it was definitely a key. It was a piece of the puzzle for me that like, I realized,
awesome.
Yeah, what I'm supposed to be doing is like going to be something that lets me really leverage my fascination with the human mind and how people think.
It's why I moved from clinical psych into coaching, actually, is because, we can look at origin stories and all that stuff. It's what strengths do you have that we can leverage now? What have been the obstacles? How did you overcome them? That's huge. I love that you spent a few minutes on talking about learning. It is one of my company's core values, education and learning, like continuous education, continuous learning. If we're not learning, we're stagnating, right? And so, and I mean, we're coming out of this pandemic thing, right? So people are like, but the message from science keeps changing. Right. It's like, that's the flipping point. It's supposed to. Right. The more we learn, the more that we get to say, oh, what we thought was the case isn't necessarily the case. We now have more information. We can grow from here. And if you take that as a personal lesson, what I thought was the case about myself, either limitations or strengths, and now I've learned more, wow, I can leverage that.
I agree that that first of all, I'm glad that you make learning such a core value of your business. As someone who I've defined my core values as of right now to be love, learning, and freedom. So as long as I use that as my filter for basing my decisions in this life, is if this allows me to experience higher levels of love, of high levels of learning, higher levels of freedom, whether it's time freedom, location independence, social freedom, financial freedom, whatever it might be, but freedom,
so great.
Right? Optionality those are my core values. But I think that when you were talking and saying that, it made me realize that some people listening may not know, and I'm not saying that you don't teach this to your employees, but I think some people, they confuse learning for input. And I make this distinction because I've taken strengths finders. I'm sure you have, or I'm sure people listening know about it. It was sitting on my shelf for like literally, I think, years before I actually like cracked it open. But when I took it, I actually have the mug like sitting over here that's got like my 5, strengths on it. But two of my top strengths are, first of all my strengths live within the realm of strategy. So I'm literally built for like strategy, and I love strategy. It's so fun for me. But two of my top 5 strengths are input and learning.
Nice.
And so I love that it, even now. And when I first took it, I was like, I kind of didn't. I was like, wait, aren't those the same? Like, isn't learning like soaking up information? It's not.
Yeah.
Right.
No.
Input is what I think often people confuse for learning. And they just think like, oh, I'm supposed to hoard a lot of information, and that's actually not true. There's a point to which absorbing and hoarding information is actually creates diminishing value for you.
Yes. And
you have all this information that's not usable because you retain none of it, and none of it actually applies to what you're doing. And even if it did, you're not actually doing the active playing around with the concepts and failing with them and messing up with them that it requires to actually learn something, right? And so I think that there's an art to, I'm so grateful for having been to workshops and surrounding myself with really powerful students / teachers. The best teachers are the ones who are the best students, and they teach the art of being a student. There's an art to being a student. If someone is not being a quality student, well, then they resort, in an attempt to learn, they resort to just hoarding information. Person who's a quality student learns things like, how to discern what is a good quality source of information, how to know when to stop hoarding and when to start applying information, how to create the highest level of retention of information so that you can quickly recall it when you most need it. And most importantly, in my opinion, which is the best students know how to spot a quality teacher. And last thing I'll say about this is that one of my favorite quotes is that, from somebody who I see myself as a disciple of, is he said, his name's Ido Portal. He's actually, a movement practitioner. I consider him a movement expert. He would never call himself an expert because he just sees himself as a student, a practitioner, and a teacher. But he's, Conor McGregor and just celebrities and people who are, whether they're ice skaters, dancers, wrestlers, athletes, anybody who rely on movement for their craft, they seek this guy out in droves. And
what's
one
his
quote
name
that
again?
he said, Ido Portal, his name is spelled as I do, IDO.
Gotcha.
Portal, and it's portal, basically spelled portal. But I went to a workshop of his, and one thing I was grateful to see him in person and hear him say was that, it's often said that a teacher or a student will cross an entire ocean, or they'll cross an entire sea just to find, the right teacher, right? If you see somebody as valuable to, which I literally did to see him, by the way, I went to he was in London, and I literally flew on my first ever time going to Europe was to learn. It was to learn from this man, because I saw him as such a powerful teacher. And so the quote says, what he said was, a great student will cross an entire sea for a great teacher, but a teacher will cross 7 seas for a quality student. And that stuck with me. And I have never forgotten that. I always remember that's like forever tattooed in my brain, because what it reminds me is that, yes, the ability to discern who is a good source to draw information from, but even more valuable is my ability to ask, am I being the student who would be worthy and would be a worthwhile student worth pouring into if I even get the shot at being in front of this person? And just knowing that, I think that's something to remember as well. For anybody's listening, because I work with, and I'm in a lot of conversations with people who are in startup world, VC, and in tech. And I think it's a world where, it's not just in that world, but we're those who want to be successful. We're often told get a good mentor, get a good mentor, get a good mentor. But I think so much more importantly than finding a good mentor is asking yourself, am I this kind of student that a mentor would really even want to pour into?
That's huge.
It's massive, because when you're the right student and you exude an energy of humbleness, humility, coachability, willingness, and ability. It's one thing to be willing, but if you're not able, then right. So there's a level of competency that you have to have, just technical chops to even be able to execute on what the person would even teach you, right? And so there's so many things that because you're only one person, right? You can only do so much hunting for the right mentor, but you're always going to be around people. People always have eyes on you. And if you're being a good student, the right mentor, they will literally do as much as you're trying to find them. The right mentor will do even more to find someone that they can pass their information, pass their legacy on to. Right.
I love that. And
they can tell, they can sniff out a mile away somebody who's not ready versus someone who's hungry. It's so easy.
That's awesome. Mm-hmm. It's making me reflect on my journey, right? But it's in terms of coaching and moving to different levels, and it's absolutely true. Being in that space of I must keep learning, right? Mm-hmm. Also, right. The journey of martial arts. I mean, you mentioned your dad was a martial artist. For me, I'm a 4th degree black belt. A lot of times when people reach black belt, the 1st degree black belt, they're like, whoo, I got my belt, I'm done. Versus the reality of, wow, I've got my black belt. Now I know that the learning must begin. Right. And it's you reach a level of mastery.
That applies to so much.
Say that again.
That applies to so much. I mean, marriage comes to mind. People think, oh, I've made it. I'm you're in kindergarten now. let's see if you can get to college.
Totally, right? It applies to everything, which goes back to be willing to learn and continue to learn, right? It's all of that. This is great. Yeah. We're coming up on the top of the hour. So I wanted to make sure that if there were loops that you wanted to close on, you'd moved, and like, what if there's a couple sentences you could give to, I thought I was going to med school, then I went to physiology.
Yeah, I can keep it, since I gave you the foundation that's like more important in my mind. I think I can keep it to the in a nutshell versions of the rest. So I went to, basically after 2 years spent in my last 2 years of high school in Tennessee, I was thinking, okay, my thought process was, all right, I don't really, like, I think I want to follow my parents' footsteps and be a doctor, but like, I don't really have a passion for it, but like, I'll find like a school that, has a good chance of like releasing like medical professionals. Maybe I'll find out if I'm cut out for it there. And so I ended up going to Lipscomb University just because at the time it was, also in-state. So I had in-state scholarship. I had, had a high rate of graduating medical professionals. And it was, I think in the magazines at the time, there was calling it like the college hunting research magazines was calling it like the best value for anybody who's trying to, go to med school. So I was like, no brainer, duh. So ended up applying there, got accepted. And first couple of years, I was like, it was like, I was so, it was my first time like really having true freedom. And so like I misspent it and I didn't really study, but then it also spoke to the fact like I just wasn't passionate about learning the thing that I was there to learn. Like nothing about me like wanted to go to be a doctor, but I was telling myself like, oh, like you gotta like uphold their legacy and like go on and do this thing. And I was like, and it took me not until like I, basically got an academic probation that I like really have to like stop and question, because I really had it was a fork in the road moment. And I've had so many fork in the road moments in my life. I love those moments because they really make you, they force you to do the right thing. But if I was basically, I can either keep messing up with my academics, or I can decide to like figure out what am I really passionate? What do I really want to do? And so the first thing that came to mind was like, okay, I've been playing sports my whole life. What if I pivot and use this to turn towards, working as a sports physical therapist or something like that? Like that could appeal to me, right? So I did that, and I ended up graduating with, I spent an extra year. So I was a fifth year senior, and I graduated with a major in biology and a minor in kinesiology, or major. Yeah, it was a kinesiology major, but my minor was in biology. My minor was in, what was my minor? Biology, and I'm forgetting now even. Wow. I think it was, exercise science. Yes, that was it. And so biology and exercise science, which is typically when you're going to PT school, which was in my plan at the time, that's the combo. That's the stack that you want. You want biology and you want exercise science. And so I ended up doing a externship in kinesiology after I graduated, and I was basically working at a physical therapy clinic, which I'm so grateful for. So I spent a year there, and I thought it was going to be my launching pad into PT school, but it ended up being my launching pad to my purpose, because it was working there as a tech who was basically, I was the person who was carrying out the orders of the physical therapist. And I was basically the one who was guiding the people, guiding the patients who came in injured, whether like busted knees, bad back, whatever it was. I was working with physically broken. And I was the one who was carrying out the orders of the physical therapist and telling them, hey, like, let's do this exercise, moving along in that fashion. So I was basically the trainer for the wounded. But I was so much more in that moment, because I was a person who I was just naturally being like optimistic and just like being like, positive, and like, it wasn't work for me. Like I was just like naturally, and like people would tell me by the time they came in and like the months had passed and like I had helped them become consistent, because I helped them when they were down, like, I don't know if this is working. I could sense it, and I could be like, hey, we're almost like, hang in there. We got this. Like I was their encourager. I was like their light. I was their candle in like a world of darkness. Cause when everything matters, right? Until your body's broken.
Yep.
Right. Until your physical world is infringed upon. Like it's broken.
Totally.
And so, and then when that happens, only one thing matters. It's just like, will I ever walk again? There's so much fear. There's so much doubt. And so I was in a world full of like, that was their entire experience, just doubt, fear, will I don't know. Yes. And so I was a person who I was a voice in their ear telling them, hey, like, you got this. Let's just like one move at a time. I'm here for you. Like literally letting them balance. Like I was like, so I think the moment when I discovered my purpose was actually working there. That's why I'm so grateful for that experience, because one of the clients told me with tears in her eyes, she told me, Chase, I'm just so grateful for you. I would not have been able to do this and heal if it were for you. I'm so grateful for it. In that moment, I felt something for the first time in my life that I'd never felt before. And I was like, wow, this feels really good.
Yeah.
It's like, and in that moment, it was while working there that I coined my purpose statement, which is, I think I'm supposed to help people overcome their barriers physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, like for as many people as possible until I expire. And like, wow. that's where I found that. And as many people as widely and as deeply as possible before I expire. And so in that moment, I realized, okay, so that was my next breadcrumb. And I realized, okay, that's what I want to do. How am I going to do it? And so I started I thought my next step from there was going, okay, maybe I can start by being a personal trainer, help people actually not just get from like negative to like zero to like square one, but let me see if I can help people get stronger. Right. And the place I was working at, I wanted to work as a trainer there, but they didn't let me. So I ended up leaving and I did some odd jobs, worked with like a moving company, it's restaurant jobs, other stuff, until I finally got my break as a Barry's Bootcamp instructor. And from there, the rest is history. Worked at Barry's Bootcamp, started doing personal training, did coaching, started an online fitness company with a couple friends of mine. I started my own fitness coaching business. And shortly after that, I got reached out to by Peloton. And we got on a phone call and I was super confused at first. I was like, why are you talking to me? Like, I'm not a cyclist. What are you, I was a boot camp instructor prior, like previously in the past before they reached out to me. And I was into like strength. I had done like a bodybuilding competition. So I was all about that. And I was like, why would, like, what is this? And so I almost didn't even like pick up the call and answer the call to my, which I now believe was like a purpose moment. And yeah, I picked up the phone. They talked to me like I felt like I was like in the Matrix, like downloading, like I could see everything play out. And I was like, yes, this is the thing. And so I said, yeah. And the rest is history. So here I am.
The landing in your purpose happened from someone giving you the gift of gratitude.
Right.
And you're like, okay, that's exactly right. And this feels good. From there, like you ran a boot camp. Now, one of the things that I wanted to ask you was, you don't teach, like, there's nothing about your style that is very boot camp like. Mostly it's, we're going to do some hard stuff, do what you can, we're going to push through this. Do this. You take joy in actually pushing people to limits, and then
I love it.
Right, but it's not like the typical. When I think of boot camp, it's like get them, pump it up, go.
Right.
It's not as forceful as that. It is. There's this like, I'm here to shove you, and I'm here to hug you, and I got you both. And it's like so like, because I so appreciate you on in the world of Peloton. It's it's so good. Yeah, you're welcome.
Yeah,
you're a little scary in that world, but it's like, it's part of why I like you. So
yeah, early on I decided that I had to decide, like, okay, what will my style be? And even before being at Peloton, I discovered, because I went through just like everybody else who's just stepping into like an industry for the first time. I was like, who am I? Like, what's my style? And like, what am I going to be known for? And so I went through those moments where I was like, like questioning and like doubtful, like, and like watching other people and like learning and observing them and their styles. I would see some people who were like more laid back. Like there was one instructor who just like literally would just like do the, like say like, hey, this is what you're going to do. Go do it. And I loved taking that class, but I'd noticed and I observed that not everybody else did. Like there would be only a few people who would actually come to that because not everybody's built that way. I did because I love the challenge of just like, you give me the assignment and it's like, it's almost like you're daring me. Like, I bet you can't do this. I love that. I love being dared, but then not everybody's built like that. Like not everybody's that rebel, who sees that, who sees, you know, the world that way. And I noticed, and so I formed my kind of, but then on the other side of things, there were the most popular classes were the ones where it was like, you know, all like happy and like music and like, you know, and I was like, okay, that's not me. I could, as hard as I might try, I'm not going to win that game because that's not who I am. I'm not like,
okay. So I've done the cardio dancing with Cody and,
right.
It is a ridiculous place to be. And, you know, it's fun and you have to let go of everything that you are to be able to do that. With you, you know, there's something I want to point out before we come back to this, and it ties directly to it.
Right.
You asked yourself a question that very, very, very few people ask. And that is, what am I going to be known for?
Right.
Most people don't ask themselves that, right? That at some point you make a decision that this is who you are. This is how you're going to be. This is how I'm going to be known. Most people don't ask themselves that. And in terms of challenge, like for my audience, I think that is a core question to take forward from here, which is, what are you going to be known for? What is your legacy? What is your style? How are you affecting the people around you in the world? What will people say about you that then attracts them back to you because you're offering them something? And I think that is huge. You know, what you're offering in the world, you do see a dare as a challenge, and you do encourage people to step into that challenge. And that is part of your appeal is, you know, we're about to lift some, you know, we've gone from middle weights to heavy weights. We're about to do something really hard. Let's go. And that's usually when I cuss a little bit. So,
and I know in those moments I can like feel, because I'm very good at like, I'm taking like, that's one thing I like about Peloton is that like I'm in those workouts, I'm doing the workouts with you.
Yes.
So I know I'm doing them with you. So I'm like, okay, if I'm thinking about this with this kind of anticipation, I know what they're thinking. It kind of gives me this ability to like know what people are thinking without, you know, without having to be psychic. Right. And so, I decided before, you know, even before moving to New York and doing what I do now, that I was going to be like, okay, I think the thing that I want, if there was one thing that I want people to leave my experience feeling, it's encouragement. And that was the thing that people around me who knew me well, who were my friends, when they would take my class, they'd be like, you're just the best encourager, Chase. Like you're the best. Like nobody can encourage like you. And so I was like, oh, well, that's what I'm naturally good at. That's my strength. And that's what I want to do anyway. Why don't I lean into that and like figure out ways to play and infuse that with other things, but let that be the core. So the number one thing I love people leaving my class feeling is encouraged. Now I'll still have moments depending on like my mood or like whatever the lesson. I don't see the workouts as just like, it's just the workout. It's like, I choose to look at my sessions as, you know, I think I said today in one of my classes, it's a standard. We're setting a new standard in some kind of way. Now the standard might be, hey, we're going to set a new standard for learning how to, I might be feeling playful. So I might be like, hey, we're going to set a new standard for just like letting ourselves move, like, and coming at this from a perspective of just play. Like, we're not going to take it too serious. If you want to, feel free, but I'm just going to like, we're just going to play. Right.
Love it.
We're just showing up, we're getting into movement and play. It might be, okay, hey, today's a day that we're just like, whether we like it or not, we're just going to show up and get the thing done. So let's challenge that. Let's raise the standard that we have for being able to show up in life with just, you know, just showing up and getting the thing done. Because, you know, that sometimes that's what life just takes. And another times it's like, okay, we have a specific outcome we're going for. We have a metric, we have a mission, so different. I love that every experience can have like a different kind of lens or layer to it. But at the core, the meat of it, you're always going to leave feeling, whether you feel pushed, whether you feel like you've had a playful time, whether you feel like you've just leaned in on like a very, intellectual conversation, you always leave feeling encouraged. You always leave feeling better, physically, mentally, spiritually, emotionally, in every kind of way, better than you found me, or than when you came. So
nice. I'm making notes. This is awesome. Is there anything that you feel like we didn't touch on that you would like to touch on? Are there lessons learned along the way?
Great question. I think the one thing I didn't really touch on is like what I'm doing now.
Oh yeah.
Aside from what, how everybody knows me, right? Or everybody who's listening, who takes classes or knows of me, knows me at least. So behind the scenes, whenever you don't see me teaching like live classes, I'm really, some people have hobbies, and they have other things that they do, whether it's like collecting cards or, fishing, whatever there is. My mission, not just a hobby, but it's my mission, it's my obsession, is to learn how to become the person who changes 1 billion lives, as my starting point.
Can I pause you there?
Sure.
So it's like, I haven't heard anybody else besides me say that out loud, which I want to teach, touch, and transform 1 billion lives. I want to lift, and it's 1 billion with a B. It's 1/7
Right.
of the population. And
Right.
we do it because we do it by starting with an accountable individual. One I versus we. It's like, I make a difference. I make a ripple. Those ripples have ripples. And whether I'm the one that's touching 1 billion lives, or I've touched people's lives who have touched others, who have touched others. And it's like, I love that you have said that out loud. So that's
yes. And if you even look at my, I change it all the time, but as of right now, my Instagram bio says, which is one of the places people can find me, by the way, at Chase Tucker on Twitter or Instagram. It says, I forget if I said, my mission is to change 1 billion, is to improve 1 billion lives, or if I'm gamifying $1 billion work ethic, one of the two, but it's kind of both. It's like, in order to like, touch 1 billion lives, I have to create $1 billion work ethic. And so my mission is to, improve 1 billion lives, specifically by being someone who is pouring in my energy into, philanthropically, but then through the work that I do, into as many people, businesses, organizations that are helping to make the world a more just and equitable society. And I plan to do that as of right now by starting my own VC fund. One day, within the next decade, I plan to do this. It might happen. Who knows? It might happen next year. I don't know. But I want to start my own VC fund and really have the financial and intellectual and social capital to infuse startups that are led by underestimated community leaders.
Love it.
Who can then use their business as a vehicle for success and impact in the world. And so I really want to be someone who's a tool to help solve some of the biggest and greatest problems in the world that I can find, that I also am conducive for, that my God-given talents are built for. And so
that resonates so strongly with me. I am a huge proponent of literacy. And the reason I think literacy worldwide is so important is that literacy helps in establishing critical thinking.
Yes.
Right. That what we need is critical thinkers, people who can look, young people who can like around the world from all backgrounds, who can look at the world and go, this is what I'm seeing, but it doesn't have to be this way. And so literacy leading to critical thinking to solve world problems, hunger and climate change, and on and on and on, right? So that we can affect change. And I love that you're starting a VC fund. And that's
the plan. That's the plan right now. And from what I can see right now, from this vantage point, that's what it looks like. But it might look like something different. But from now, where I am right now, it looks like me building relationships, connecting with startups, more specifically, diverse women from underestimated communities, because I think that the world needs more of that energy. And I mean, all positions of power, across the board, whether it's in government, boardrooms, C-suite executives, wherever, community leaders. But specifically, I realize that where my passion, where my competency, where my experience, where my education and more all align is in the world of tech. And it's in the world of, it's me using my strategic mind to help be an advisor to and a coach or mentor, but lending my strategic thinking to businesses, and whether it's in an advisor capacity, as a coach, mentor, whatever, to really be, like I said, a tool to help them really help level the playing field. That's the way I look at it. It's like I'm here to just mischievously just dismantle every kind of system, obstruction, obstacle that could possibly keep these kind of people from fulfilling their purpose. And I'm here to do it as big as possible before I die. I never know when that day may come, but I'm here to do it as big as possible and as quickly as possible. But I'm not optimizing for speed because I need it to be as fast as possible. I'm optimizing for speed because I know that the more speed I get with it, the more that I can do,
the greater the impact. Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I'm slow is fast. So I have patience in the as Gary Vee would, who I love listening to, as he would say, I have, macro patience, but I have micro speed and urgency. And I have micro impatience with myself. And just like, I need to see action for myself on a consistent basis. But on the macro level, I'm so patient. I'm so unattached from outcome. I have the burning desire matched with the, outcome detachment. So
that's huge, right? And I want to make sure that the audience just heard that too. Like, as you're listening to this, it is burning desire matched with a sense of detachment. It's like outcome detachment. It's like, this needs to. So, I use the phrase joyfully dissatisfied.
Yes.
I want to live my life joyfully dissatisfied, which is, if you paused me right now, I'm joyful. I wake up annoyingly perky. I'm joyful. And I'm not like, if you paused me, I would not be happy because there's more to do. There's always more. There's always more. And so I can appreciate, I live in gratitude. And I also know that there's more to do. There's more to serve. There's like, we can serve more greatly. We can affect more lives. We've got, and that's the passion. That's the burn. I love so much connecting with you. I believe
we're gonna do
you.
This again sometime. Let's connect back a year from now. Who knows? Maybe I'll have the VC fund by then.
I don't want to wait a year. So and it's like, who knows? It's like, and it's not going to take a year. So this is awesome.
Is there anything that I can do, before we wrap up? I'd love to know how I can, be of service, for you and for this podcast that I'm really grateful for being on, or for any of the listeners who are, because I know the things that I could, potentially offer, but I would love to hear what you might find valuable that how I could be of service.
Well, the more lives we touch, the better. And so your ability to tag the podcast, to tag me, to like that kind of stuff, being able to leverage the voice is a big deal. In terms of our listeners and viewers, I think what's important is for them to know how to reach you. Right. So on Instagram, it's at Chase Tucker. On Twitter, it's the same thing, right? At Chase Tucker.
And I plan on getting a website up shortly, and they can find me, chasetucker.com. So I'll keep it super simple.
Do you have that URL?
I do. It's not, not, if you go there right now, it might not lead to anything.
No, but that's fine. Like just being able to know that exists.
Right.
I just found out that there's I get Google alerts about my name. Right. And so I just found out that there's a Wayne Pernell who is like this vice captain of a soccer team in South Africa.
Oh, wow.
So I'm getting all this, these alerts like Wayne Pernell did this. I'm like, what? So just to be able to have your name, right? ChaseTucker.com is great. We will find that.
You should reach out to him and ask him if he's ever plans on parting ways with it. That's how I got my Instagram. That's a funny story. I literally asked someone who had Chase Tucker. I was like, "Hey, would it be okay? I'd be happy to pay you for it, but and he just gave it to me." And I was like, "Oh, cool."
Oh, that's awesome. No, I own WaynePernell.com. I own DynamicLeader.com.
Oh, nice. Okay. I
own a ton of URLs, including thebreakthroughsuccesscoach.com. So seriously, like obviously I want to support you and your efforts. You've come here, you've given me and the audience so much. I really appreciate that. So how do we support you as well?
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you for asking. I think that the number one way that anyone can support me is if there's the obvious, like if you want to, I won't say follow me necessarily, because if you may not, I'd say if you're interested and you find value, then of course you'll naturally do this. So I don't even have to say, but if there's anyone listening who is aware of or like knows anybody who is, a startup founder, or really anyone in the startup tech VC world who is from an either underestimated community, or they're just like somebody who's just like a good person, quality person who they think that would be valuable for me. Like they've listened to what I'm talking about. They're like, this person would be so great to connect with Chase. Send them my way. Like either, DM me on Instagram. I check my DMs. Still, I'm not at 1 million followers yet, so it's still relatively easy to like still check DMs. But if you, and then I think of the second way, other than sending people like that my way, which that alone would be super valuable, but it would be if you do follow me, if you decide to follow me, then just like, and you do find the things that I'm sharing valuable, then just share it. Cause like you said, it's about touching as many people as possible with the message. And I really, really aim, when I do share content, I really aim to make it something that's nourishing and that's valuable for people, either nourishing them physically or giving them information that can either help them physically, mentally, emotionally, spiritually, or something that's just going to make them feel smarter by the time they've finished reading it, or know themselves better. And so if the best compliment anybody can give me is like, if it's valuable for you, then chances are somebody else who would be valuable for it. And I just love to share the wealth. So
that's so good, Chase. Can I end with reading out some affirmations that you say?
Oh, please do. Please do.
All right. So this is just so grounding. And so, picture yourself, if you haven't taken a class with Chase, picture yourself like you could barely lift your arms off the side of your body, and that you're lying back on the floor and you're sweating and breathing hard. And then you hear this calming voice say, I am becoming my best, strongest, and highest self with each day I choose to take consistent action towards my goals and purpose. I'm in competition with no one except the person I was yesterday, and I'm exactly where I'm supposed to be, on the path I have specifically chosen and created. I am the master of my mind. I am the master of my body. I am the master of my life. Chase Tucker, thank you for being here with me today.
And so it is.
Good. And so it is. Yes.
That just made me feel like my energy just spiked a little bit when you were just reading that out loud. I was like, man, is that what it feels like to have that read to you?
It totally is, right? Which is, I think it's so important that you hear your own words back sometimes, because it's like, dang, that's good. Like, right? It's like, dang, that's good.
Right. I get a lot of messages. I think that's the number one message I get from people nowadays is like, I love those affirmations. Where can I find them? So I think I need to make something that like either a shirt that has them on
mugs,
there, like
shirts,
something.
Like I'm the master of is like really good. It's like, yeah, it's so good. And I'm in competition, but with no one but who I was yesterday. It's like that's
and so if you want just a quick backstory behind how that came to be, I was listening to, so I practice, affirmations, visualizations, meditation, all these kind of things to help optimize myself for the greatness I wish to achieve. And so when I often on my journey, when I find little things that work for me, I'll just share them as like nuggets, crumbs for people behind me. And so I had listened to last year a visualization exercise in which one of the things they said was I'm the master of my mind, I'm the master of my body, I'm the master of my life. And I felt that when it said that. And I was like, you know what? I'm going to start saying affirmations in my classes. And so the first two I created myself. And then the last one was from that, but it's just, and the reason I think that, the competition, and they were all words that I needed. So I said them for myself first, but I knew it would be valuable for others. And so ending each class that way, like, it's like you said, I'm becoming my best, strongest, and highest self with each day that I choose to take consistent. I'm in competition with no one, because it's so easy in this world nowadays to just like see, whether on social media or whatever, you just see competition. But like we truly do need a reminder sometimes that like, dude, there is no competition. You are the competition. You are your only competition. You're in a race of one.
Yeah.
So,
everything, the competition is the fear and doubt that you've let creep in, and it's like, let's crush that. Those are the lies. If we can get rid of the lie of fear, the lie of doubt, and recognize that the truth is the strength of knowing that the answer is right there. And using the tool of curiosity. I mean, this ties together everything we've been talking about, Chase. And it's what's going to get you into your VC fund. It's going to get you to, seriously, I mean, that's going to get you to a place of touching the billion lives. Fantastic. I'm so grateful for you. I'm so grateful that you joined me. And really, I look forward to our future connection. I don't know what that looks like. Me too. I'm super... I'm super grateful for being here. Thank you to you, whoever helped set this up, everyone who's listening right now. And if there's one final word that I'll say, it would just be, I believe it's a quote that I've heard, and I'll pass it along. But I believe that the person who will help us as a society and as humanity usher in a new era, of heightened consciousness, prosperity, justice, equity, everything, they will be the person who's the most whole among us. And so I would love to encourage anyone who's listening right now, whatever you're going through, whatever you are experiencing, whatever brokenness you might be feeling, just know that it's a part of you becoming the person who is stronger and more whole, so that you can be the leader who this world needs you to be and is waiting on you. We can't wait to see you become that person. Good. So it is. So good. Thank you so much.
So it is.
All right. Hang with me as I close this out. Chase Tucker, thank you for being here. This is One Sharp Sword, cutting through to what matters most. Powerful interview with Chase Tucker today. And I am Dr. P, Dr. Wayne Pernell, the Breakthrough Success Coach and your powerful presence mentor.